What's up, Prophetic Generation? This is Pastor Jay coming to you live, via probably one of the rougher areas here in South Florida. I'm not afraid to walk into places because I believe that God has a great thing that He wants to do in this city. When I look around, I see so much potential, so many things that God can do in this city. In the book of Nehemiah was filled with all types of disappointments because he knew the state of Jerusalem. He knew that God's city was in shambles. God's city was in ruins. When I look around our city, I mourn just like Nehemiah mourned. And like Nehemiah, I survey and, I walk amongst the streets or I drive amongst the streets of the city because I see what the enemy has done. But you know what? We are not without power. We are not without the ability to make an impact and a difference in our city. Right behind me here, right in front of me actually, behind you, is a church. And I'm not going to name the church. But I look at the church, and there's so many different churches like this and communities like this. And, a moment ago, I was driving a past a pornography store and a psychic place. And in that same plaza, there was a church. And I start to ask myself, what impact is the church making in the city when the church can cohabitate with ungodly forces? Listen, we have become so comfortable in our four walls, and we have become so content and so complacent with where we are and what we're doing that we have become silenced. We have become satisfied with our mediocre ministries, and we have become satisfied with trying to force feed this generation with what we ourselves have concocted as substitutes for God's presence. Friends, let me tell you something. If God's presence is not present in our lives, then we're not making any type of impact in this city. You could sit here and pray, God, break this stronghold, God, break that stronghold. But if God is not turning your world upside down, if you're not a Nehemiah, if you're not in complete ruins, in complete shame over what we see, man, let me tell you something. In a moment, I'm going to drive around this city. I'm going to show you the different things that are in our city. But I pray that this video would open up your eyes to see that, you know what? There's so much work that the church needs to do in these last days. But I'm here more north of our last location. Our last location was pretty down south. But I don't know if you can see it, but in the back right there, there's a pornography store. And again, I don't want to point out any churches, but in the corner right there, in the same plaza, there's a huge church. It doesn't make sense to me. A lot of times people ask me, Jose, what does it take to make a godly impact in this city? Well, you know what it took in the Bible? It took when men and women felt the fire of God, the zeal of God, and were moved with passion for God to be able to make a difference in their cities. God used ordinary men and women, whether they were fishermen, whether they were leaders and kings or prophets. It didn't matter who they were. The only common trait of all the people that were used in great exploits for God was their yes. They said yes. A moment ago I talked about Nehemiah. Nehemiah said yes. King David said yes. Daniel said yes. You got Daniel, who's living in an ungodly atmosphere, a Babylonian empire. And here he says, yes. The question I want to ask you as a prophetic generation, a generation that will stand out for God, is will you say yes? Will you say yes to what's going on in our city? Will you say yes to making an impact in this city? Will you say yes to making a difference in the world that's around you? Will you say yes to evangelizing? While we were at the last location, I stopped and I talked with a gentleman, And I asked him if he would be willing, to take just a couple of moments, just to be able to share what his viewpoints were on the church. And he was really open and receptive. And, he wouldn't stop for the moment because he was actually late for work, which was so funny. But, it's just amazing to see how, people won't stop and just do simple things like that. They won't stop and just say, hey, let me talk to you for a couple of seconds. They won't do it because they're so afraid. Why are they so afraid? Because they're powerless. They have no power. Listen, when you've got power, you can walk into these places and you can be, there's people that are out here right now. They're looking at me like I'm a fool, like I'm an idiot. Like, what the heck is he doing talking to a camera? But I really don't care. You know why? Because this is my city. This city is my inheritance from God. Because it's my inheritance from God, I claim this city for God. I claim this city for God. I pray against the demonic strongholds that are in operation through places like this video store that's in the background. I even pray against the demonic strongholds that are in operation that can allow a church to coexist with places like this pornography store in the background. I want you to know that there are demonic principalities that make it okay for church to survive in the midst of demonic principalities. Listen, it is not supposed to be that way. In the book of Exodus, when God's people were seeking liberation from Egyptian rulership, the Pharaoh told Moses, hey, listen, I'm going to let you go out into the wilderness and worship your God. Just don't go too far in case I need you for something. And you know what? The enemy is doing the same exact thing to us as a generation. Just don't go too far. He's got such a grasp on the church today where it's okay for churches to coexist with places like pornography stores, with places like psychic centers. In this same plaza, there's a psychic in this plaza. It shouldn't be so. It shouldn't be so. Friends, my prayer for you is that a holy anger will rise up in your heart for this generation, for your city. It's getting ready to rain out here, as it always does in South Florida. But I want to encourage you. Continue to pray. Continue to make a difference. Rise up. Rise up and make a difference in this city. Because God is with you. Seek his power. Seek his anointing.